The Washington Commanders have made a lot of noise this offseason, and they have made some bold moves in order to put themselves in a better position to make the NFC Championship game or potentially head to a Super Bowl appearance for the first time in a long time for a Commanders franchise that has struggled a lot over the last decade. Now, that completely changed when they drafted rookie phenom quarterback Jaden Daniels in the first round. Daniels was an absolute superstar in his first season for the team, leading the team, whether that is passing, rushing, whatever it is. Jaden Daniels took the ball in his hands when the team needed it most and came up clutch for this team. Now, they made some other moves like Dan Quinn as the head coach and completely redesigned this offense under Cliff Kingsbury, and was a popular name in the head coaching cycle as they had a monster 12-5 season after being the second worst team in the NFL during the 2024 year. Now, this offseason, they are looking to build on that as they had one of the highest cap spaces in the NFL. They've went out and did this by making big moves, adding players like Laramie Tunzel through trade. You add Deebo Samuel as well. Then you also add recently Von Miller through free agency. They also had a draft class where they added a few different options on the defense and offensive side of the ball. All in all, the Commanders are getting a ton of hype heading into 2025 and training camp right around the corner. I think it's fair to go and evaluate this team and see if the hype is real and if the Commanders are truly in that class of elite rosters and elite teams that are for sure Super Bowl contenders. Now, I'm not going to go that far, so let's go take a look and see if this Commanders team is within that top tier class. The Commanders are coming off of a 2024 NFC Championship game loss against their division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this team made it to the championship game despite a lot of holes on this roster, and they were carried by their rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Daniels finished last year with a 90.6 PFF grade, 90 PFF grade on the ground, and an 84.7 passing grade. They also had really good performances from their veteran receiver, Terry McLaurin, who is currently seeking a contract extension. We will see how that plays out, but I fully expect that McLaurin will be suiting up for this Commanders team here in 2025. He was great as well with an 86 PFF grade last season, as well as other players that contributed well. And it was an interesting backfield tandem between Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler that held things down for this team and produced big time weeks. And what helps is you have a running quarterback that completely opens up everything. Now, outside of McLaurin in the receiver room, it wasn't necessarily consistent behind him. They didn't have a true number two option. And at the tight end position, you have Zach Ertz, who had a little bit of a comeback season at age 34, but he can't necessarily be relied on as that wide receiver two or passing option number two in this offense anymore at this point in his career. As far as the offensive line goes, this unit wasn't necessarily the best built team in the NFL last year. They had struggles on the tackle position almost every week, and then the interior offensive line struggled as well. Defensively, it was an interesting mix as this team ranked one of the higher in pass rush win rates, but was one of the lowest teams in run stop win rates. And this team was very volatile on defense. You'd see Dan Quinn cook up an absolute masterclass, and this team have a really solid week. And then the next week, they give up a touchdown every other drive. And you're like, man, this Commanders defense is never going to allow them to go far in the playoffs. They were led by veteran linebacker Bobby Wagner, who had a all-pro season last year for the team. He had an 88 PFF grade, 91 against the run, and then also somehow manage a 90.9 pass rush grade, which is crazy for Bobby Wagner. Outside of that, on that defense, they did not have much production. Veterans like Jonathan Allen suffered injuries and weren't necessarily able to be on the field, also having one of the worst cornerback rooms in the NFL, and that did not change much when they acquired Marshawn Lattimore via trade. Lattimore was not the same player that he was in New Orleans when he is in Washington right now. And now this team enters 2025 with a bunch of big time moves that they had to make. They went out and added some players, whether it is through the draft or free agency, to try and go clear up these moves because they had one of the highest cap space totals in the NFL, and it has caused a lot of excitement for this team. Let's start with Von Miller and his potential impact for this team and take a look at the film room for Von Miller here as well. Von Miller comes in after being cut by the Buffalo Bills into multiple years of his massive deal with the team that he necessarily did not live up to. Von Miller basically at the end of his contract became a rotational pass rusher for the Bills and did not play much on run downs. He had an 86 PFF grade last year, which is honestly really solid for this point in his career, but a lot of that production was on pass rush. His run defense grade ranked in the middle of the NFL, and he only played 60 snaps against the run last year, which just means he's not on the field much on early downs. But let's take a look at the film and show you guys why Von Miller can help this pass rush real quick. Von Miller throughout his career has been notorious as one of the best speed rushers of the last decade. And, last year was a little bit of a resurgent year for him. Let's take a look at kind of how quick he wins in certain situations still, despite his old age. I mean, being able to go around the edge like that as quick as you can and make a tackle look this silly, I know it's not a great rep by the tackle, but Miller still is able to have a really solid hand strike here that puts him in a great position to beat this block quickly and then gets another sack, which we know he's totaled a ton of throughout his NFL career. While yes, Von Miller is a great speed rusher, this guy also wins with a little bit of power to his game, as you can see on this play right here. He is going to completely bully the right tackle, pushing him right into the ground and making a big-time sack of Aaron Rodgers when this team needs it on third down. As you guys take a look on this play, there's just not much more to explain besides Von Miller in his hand strike position here. His good leverage right here, and all he needs is a one-hand arm, and this right tackle is on the ground. Miller has a cleanup sack just like that. And a lot of plays like this are why he had a little bit of a resurgent 2024 campaign, as he had multiple sacks last year, finished with 6, and he also was a solid piece on this Buffalo defense on passing downs. As you guys can see, Von Miller still has a little bit of speed and finesse in his game still. Does definitely not the same player he once was with the Denver Broncos, but it does provide a solid rotational edge rusher for this team. He adds to a room of Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, who is recently signed there, and he also pairs with some, defensive interior linemen that are pass rush based focus. We will talk about them a little bit later, but let's get into the other signings now. And let's start with probably the more impactful one, and that is Laramie Tunsil. This team's offensive line last year, especially at the tackle position, was really tough to watch. And Jaden Daniels' legs and his ability to improvise and keep people off balance as a defensive coordinator really kept this team afloat because their offensive line was not very good last year. Tunsil enters as one of the best pass blocking left tackles that we have seen over the last decade. His run blocking has decreased over the past few years, not making him as valuable, but he also has a lot of penalties that made him expendable for the Houston Texans. Now, the Commanders get him at a little bit of a discount, it felt like, and he completely inserts himself as the best offensive lineman for this team and a leader who has had a lot of experience. Tunsil still brings a really quality pass set that is going to help this team out. Now, run blocking, he's still an above average offensive lineman, but we will see how consistent he can be and how often he can avoid having penalties this year. But I think that move is a major add for them. The next move, Deebo Samuel. We all know that Deebo Samuel is one of the more popular memes in the NFL right now. A lot of people just saying he is overweight, he is not in shape, and he is just not the same player. Guys, you just need to understand that is what Deebo looks like, and he is just a bigger set type of player. Deebo is not necessarily going to win a ton of routes. He is going to be able to play underneath in this offense, but he's not going to win at a crazy rate. They could utilize him as a rusher a little bit, but I don't know how much that's going to happen here in Washington at this point in his career. We saw last season his grades in PFF dip for the 49ers, and his production and efficiency numbers also took a significant decrease. The yards after the catch just wasn't there for Deebo, and if he's not separating, I don't know what makes him different than a lot of average wide receivers in the NFL. So as far as the Deebo move goes, I don't think this significantly improves their wide receiver group. And I think that potentially the Michael Gallup one could be a sneakier signing than the Deebo Samuel signing in terms of helping this passing game become more consistent this year. Now, we talked about those guys. Let's talk about the draft class that this team had. And it's a very fascinating one. You had Josh Connerly in the first round, and I think this gives them a true chance at having 2 elite tackles if Connerly pans out like he is supposed to. Connerly played at Oregon, had really solid production there, really good PFF grades, really good advanced metrics as well. And him and Tunsil can form a solid tackle duo for the next 4 to 5 seasons if everything works out for him. And if he's not ready this year, which, I mean, he seems like he could be a project guy the way the tape looks a little bit, you have Andrew Wiley, who has been a veteran and has been a serviceable tackle. Not the best tackle, I'm not saying that. And last year we saw his limitations, but he has been a serviceable tackle until Connerly is ready. So I like the pick. I think that gives them a solid foundation at the tackle position, which is one of the most important positions at the NFL level. And then in the second round, you go and address the cornerback room situation. You get Trey Amos with one of my favorite values of the draft. His production at Ole Miss was really good, tested really well, and I love his tape. Amos is a guy who is twitchy, makes plays on the ball, and I really think that he is going to be their best cornerback this season. They do have Marshawn Lattimore, and I do think that Mike Sanistril could be an interesting player as well for them this year. He was really solid in the slot for them. I think that combination of those three guys could be fascinating for me to watch in the cornerback room, and I think they could take a little bit of a step forward from where they were last season, despite being without Jeremy Chin over the top for this defense. They also did lose Jonathan Allen on the interior defensive line of the ball, but I don't think their draft class not going towards that direction necessarily is going to hinder them from being really solid in the interior defensive line. It is going to be an interesting strategy that I think they're going to deploy, but I think that with Javon Kinlaw being there, De'Aaron Payne, those guys that are going to anchor that interior defensive line, they're straight power rushers, and we've seen that this has kind of caused some of their run issues on the defensive side of the ball. If you do not have a defensive tackle that is solid against the run, you're typically going to grade lower and struggle more against the run, and you're relying heavily on your linebackers to read and flow downhill. And I do think Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu are two of the better linebackers in that. But what worries me is that the interior defensive line not having a ton of upside in terms of run defense, it limits them and what this team can do. Yes, they'll be good on third down, but being able to stop the run is one of the more important things to be able to do to keep your offense on the field and keep your defense off the field, which helps you win the game at the end of the day. Now, let's take a look at this team's schedule heading into next year. As you guys can see, the schedule doesn't open up too shabby. You get a game against the Giants, who really struggled last season, having a lot of younger talent. You have the Packers, which I think is going to be a great matchup on Thursday Night Football. Could be a really good test for both teams to see where they're at in 2025. Then you go Raiders, Falcons, Chargers, Bears. If they're able to walk away 4-2 from the stretch, I think they feel really comfortable about themselves before their schedule really gets tough in the second half of the season. You get the Cowboys, who are expected to be better this year in a division rival game, which always is a tough game for them. Then you play the Chiefs, which we know is the cream of the crop of the NFL. The Seahawks, who have a lot of veterans, but I think the Commanders should be favored there. The Lions are going to be tough. The Dolphins, which should be a good matchup for them. They have a bye week in Week 12, which helps for a postseason run. Then you go an absolute brutal 6-game stretch. The Broncos, the Vikings, a division rival in the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and then the Eagles again. This Commanders team's schedule does not necessarily set them up for success, and they end the year with a really tough schedule that could dictate where they end up in the playoff race and whether or not this team is going to have a home game this year in the playoffs. All in all, the Washington Commanders have had a flashy offseason, to say the least. They've made big-time moves, adding players like former All-Pros in Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, and Von Miller, while walking away with a solid foundational draft class in Josh Connerly and Trey Amos. Now, will this be enough for the Commanders to take a step forward, improve on their record at 12-5, make it farther than the NFC Championship game, and dethrone the Eagles? I don't think so. I think this Commanders team is still a little bit of ways away. The run stuffing ability on this defensive side of the ball, especially in a division against Philadelphia where we know they have Saquon Barkley and an elite offensive line, it feels like that is going to be one of their biggest challenges entering this year. And offensively, I don't think the Deebo Samuel move necessarily moves the needle for this team in the pass game. This team still needs a true wide receiver that can separate outside of Terry McLaurin, and it is going to hurt them when they're going to need to pass. All in all, I think the Commanders are going to be able to compete for a playoff spot again in 2025, but can we realistically put them in the class of the Chiefs, Eagles, Ravens, Bills? I don't think so. I don't think they're in that class just yet, but I think they're right below it and knocking on the door heading into 2025. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section below. Is this Washington Commanders team the cream of the crop of the NFL after all these additions this offseason? Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I will catch you guys next time.